Okay. It's okay. I think it's doing it.
Yes. Okay. Redirecting.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. All right. It's okay. I think it's doing it. Mute.
Okay. Turning off my camera.
Well, are we doing an intro?
I forgot. That is the thing to do.
All right. So did we send this link to everyone watching on the other?
Now we're doing it now.
Okay, and I'll try to update the pub. Cool. All right, let's go. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience with us this morning. Streaming is always tricky. So we're on a new stream. I hope you found us. Yeah, welcome to, I believe this is the 5th edition of hybrid live coding interfaces. It's the 3rd year that the 3 of us have co-organized. So I'm here with Melody Lovelace and Kofi, and I'm going to let Kofi just kick off the first session since we're a little delayed.
Yeah, no problem. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first session of HLCI24, Life Coding Your Niche. And for the first session, we decided to go with heritage and cultural because life coding spans a lot of areas, a lot of regions, a lot of disciplines.
Okay.
And in this first session, that's what we are going to explore. We're going to go to different regions, different scenes, different genres, and even how all of that mesh together to explore what life coding is, was, and could be. So first up, we have Luis with algorithmic cumbia music.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen real quick, as well as audio. So thank you so much. My talk is about algorithmic cumbia. My name is Luis Navarro, and thank you everyone, Coffee, Melody, and Kate, for inviting me. Really quick, I'm going to talk about what is algorithmic, what is cumbia, what is digital, and algorithmic cumbia, and then I will show 3 pieces of my individual work related to this type of music. So really quick, cumbia is a musical genre and folk dance from Colombia that started in the late 19th century, but it has evolved into different styles in Latin America, throughout Latin America, the United States, Canada, and Europe. This music incorporates rhythms and the instruments from European cultures, African cultures, and indigenous cultures. And since the mid 20th century, this music has fused with other technologies such as electric guitars and turntables, which has given rise to styles such as Amazonian cumbia from Peru, which mixes psychedelic rock with cumbia music, as well as the Mexican style cumbia sonidera, which uses DJ techniques in Mexico. And on the right side, we have a picture of Los Mirlos, from which is a psychedelic Peruvian cumbia band from the 1960s. Digital and algorithmic cumbia, these are 2 terminologies that are more recent. Digital cumbia refers to the creation of cumbia through software, such as Fruity Loops, Reason, Pro Tools, and Ableton, so really like graphical interfaces. And the author, who is a Spanish author, Israel Marquez, names this type of cumbia digital cumbia, but also some people refer to this as electronic cumbia, cumbiatronica, as well as new cumbia. And within my research, in live coding, I started doing and also coming up with the term algorithmic cumbia, which refers to the creation of cumbia from a more experimental side with software such as Super Collider and Tidal Cycles, as well as live coding techniques. And so we can find early early examples of this music since the 2010. Some bands include Nico Rex from Mexico, Reggaeton, which is a band where I participate, and also Rafrobeat, which is a performer, like other performer from Colombia. And so I would like to show you some work related to algorithmic cumbia. So this is by Reggaeton. This is just maybe 1 or 30 seconds of music. And then the music you will hear, it looks like the picture on the right side. This was made with Super Collider and with live coding techniques.
Sasaurosura. Sasaurosura.
And so for the sake of time, I'm just gonna cut it there, but it sounds that way with different instruments related to Latin music. Here I have another example. So this is Cacharpo. This is an autonomous cumbia live coder that I created during my master's with David Ogborn, who was my supervisor in 2016. So I'm gonna play a couple of seconds. And so this works in Super Collider. I'm typing on the right side where you see it, you will see my name, Luis, and on the left side, this autonomous agent called Cacharpo starts typing to follow along this cumbia music. Okay, so it goes like that for about 8 minutes or so. And on the left side, you can see the how this autonomous agent is kind of listening to the different sounds, and that's how it complements the rhythms of this cumbia music, cumbia-inspired music. And so the last example that I want to show you is a more recent example. This is called Seis Octavos. It's a cumbia live coding platform that I also created, that I created during my PhD, also with David Ogburn. So I'm just gonna play 30 seconds and that will be the end of my presentation. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much. And I'm open to any questions that you have. Thank you again.
All right. Before the chat gets some questions, I guess I have a question. Cumbia has a lot of dance, right? It's dance, it has festivals. There's so much group work. Can you talk about that experience? Because normally coding is a solo thing, but you were part of like a group that did do some reggaeton and some cumbia. Can you explain how that keeps the spirit of cumbia and the greater Latin music alive, that teamwork aspect?
Sure, sure. Thank you, Kofi. Yeah, so really quick, this piece that I played for you is called, from a band that I used to be in which is called Reggaeton. So we were a band of 4 people, and we were playing different music styles, sometimes reggaeton, sometimes cumbia. And so, yeah, definitely there was a part of collective interaction and so on. I was the person who mostly played cumbia, and so when I was taking the spot, the other people complemented with other, more experimental sounds and so on. And when other people were playing their own styles, like reggaeton and so on, I was complementing. So that was the part of how it worked for this group, Reggaeton. With all these other projects, I started doing this in Mexico when I was playing with reggaeton, so I was part of this band. But when I moved to Canada to do my master's and PhD, where I did these other projects, then I didn't have anyone to play with, and so that's why I maybe started doing these autonomous agents, so it could be complemented, because nonetheless this music is really similar in their patterns. Small changes, you have to do small changes to keep the interest of people.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, as you say, really quick, as you say, the collective aspect of playing this music is important, rather than playing it as a solo performer.
yeah. And I think it's a nice little twist, right? Because we always think of programming as a solo event. And I also know that you were able to play cumbia and do cumbia-based workshops or similar in Latin America. So can you, and you know this is all about heritage and cultural, how was it, how did people respond, and how did you feel like translating this cultural vibe into a digital realm?
Well, so to do this project, I also, it was during the pandemic, particularly this one, the programming language that I'm showing here in the screen. This happened during the pandemic. So I met with people from Latin America all around the world through Zoom. And so we were discussing issues of cumbia, cultural appropriation, widening of this music, and so on. And so that helped me to develop this platform in a maybe more conscious way. And after the COVID, I've been able to teach a couple of workshops in Mexico City, where the reception has been good. People really feel the music sounds like cumbia, and also they are interested because they feel related to something that they hear every day on the streets and on the public transit and in parties and so on.
Oh, thank you very much. And I'm going to see if there's one more question from the chat. And if not, then we're going to go back in the Q&A session with the group panel and have more questions that intersect all the talks together. Thank you very much for starting the HLCI 2024 edition.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. So now we're going from Latin America and cumbia to now Alvaro and Does It DJant live coding metal. Take it away.
Hello everyone, can you hear me? Okay, cool, awesome. Okay, let me start my slideshow here. Okay, well, my name is Alvaro, and I hope you have lots of energies to start transcribing this tune that is playing right now. Well, that was a trip of a tune. Here you have some seconds to finish transcribing it. Okay, awesome. Was joking. That was a hell of a tune by a really cool band called Meshuga. The tune is called Stenga, and the purpose of this presentation is to try, translating that into algorithms using live code. And yeah, why exactly? Well, I don't know. It's 6 a.m. here in Los Angeles, and I have like maybe 3 minutes left. So let's get to the point. So this song is based on something called gent. Is a substyle of modern metal music where you play with polymeters, which are rhythms that keep wrapping around a bass rhythm. So the polymeter you can see expressed on the slides here, and it's played against a 4/4 beat. And it's truncated around the end so that the phrase can repeat with 8 bars of 4/4. Let me show you what I'm saying with code. So this is what the rhythm sounds like. So we are hearing the kick with the 4/4 beat. This is tidal cycles, by the way. So now, if I add a snare drum, you can hear what I was playing before, but it's masked with tidal cycles. We mask rhythms with other rhythms and remove parts of them. So what I'm doing is taking the original riff and taking out some parts of it so we can make some room for the snare. Then we can add some ghost notes on the drums and some additional cymbals. The ghost notes, a drummer would add them, in the space in between anything else that has been played before, and that's why the ghost notes are basically the original rhythm inverted. It's a mask of the original rhythm. So here's how that sounds like. And if I degrade by, which in tidal cycles remove some of those notes by a percentage to decrease the density of whatever is being played in our pattern. This just humanizes the pattern and makes it sound more improvised, like the original drummer was doing with this song. And finally, you can play the rhythm through a bass guitar kind of instrument and some legato, and change the notes according to the rhythm as well. And while I'm playing this, I'm gonna show you how the pattern truncates at the end here. And then it repeats from the beginning. So this is a very short, quick, and dirty example of how to translate, any kind of math rock, experimental metal into live coding. Because many of these pieces of music follow very interesting logic that can be expressed in a fun way using live coding. So anyway, that was it for my presentation. I hope you had a blast to start the morning. And if you want to help me stay in the US and get my US artist visa, please follow, share, and collaborate with me. Again, my name is Alvaro, and thank you so much for watching. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Alvaro. Yeah, that definitely woke me up this morning. Uh, a similar question that I had for Luis, I'm going to also add for you. We know typically that metal is also in a band, right? Metal also contains a lot of aesthetics. How do you translate the aesthetics of metal in your performance?
So in my case, metal has always been one of the bass styles that I have, listened to. Metal, classical music, computer music, and stuff like that. So at some point when I was learning to code, and I was, learning about these bands that do more math-based stuff, I realized that these two concepts tie together really nicely. Like, if you want to understand how to make music in this style, having an understanding of coding and algorithms helps a lot, and vice versa. Once you have an understanding of live coding and algorithms, it's very easy to write new music in that style, if that makes sense.
No, it does make a lot of sense because, like you said, it's something that you enjoyed. So you were basically translating something that you already listened to in this other format, probably fell in love with it, and then went vice versa. So it's this like inner circular loop. And a question, how would you like, let's say a band, a heavy metal band were to tell you, Avero, we really want to like implement coding. What is something that is similar to what they do, but then what is something different than a traditional rock band that they would have to take into account if they were live coding metal?
Yeah, totally. There have been very interesting scenarios where I've been, jamming, rehearsing, and even writing music, but especially collaborating with singers and instrumentalists that are not live coding during the performance. It's interesting finding ways to rehearse, make music that will also work out for them, or even if it's music that is tremendously confusing and complex, adding layers that maybe only they can hear, like a click track or a more schematic part of the song, like a simplified part of the song that helps them to stick to a beat, stick to a chord structure and stuff like that. So I think that's a challenge that I found while, trying to take this to the realm of metal and rock and stuff like that. But it can be done and it's fun.
Uh, Thank you very much for that. And stick around because there will be more questions at the end. And next up, we went from cumbia to metal, and now we're going to go into a whole different scene that seems to have some similarities to live coding or even could involve live coding. And James Redford, other known as J Truck, will be demonstrating this in his presentation showcasing live coding in the demo scene.
Thank you very much. So this is going to be a short talk. There's a lot to talk about, but what I want to do is introduce you to what we do, to pique your interest, and to invite you to find out a little more. So I'm going to talk about what the demo scene is. I'm going to talk about what live coding is in the demo scene, what forms it takes, and the culture around it. And I'm going to tell you how and where to find out more. So the demo scene grew out of game piracy in about the late 80s and had a bloom in the early 90s. It was formed of groups of mostly European, mostly teens who would crack copyright on games. There'd be quite a bit of pride about getting the latest thing and a bit of competition. They'd make their logo appear as the game loaded, and they distribute these across their networks through international post and bulletin boards, and the last mile of that will probably be the schoolyards across the world. People there had pseudonyms, probably because it was a little bit illegal and probably because it was quite cool. And the groups had names as well, which were somewhere between aggressive and whimsical, and that tradition still stands today. Those logos that they put on the front of these crack games got fancier, they got drawn art, they started being made out of moving dots, and they also became part of this competition between groups. And at some point, this transcended into its own form, leaving the game piracy mostly behind in another branch of history. And these became demonstrations known as demos, which were swapped themselves individually on discs or bulletin boards. They were self-contained things. Around that, people started to gather in person. These were known as parties, and were informal gatherings in the early 90s that sort of crossed over with gaming LAN parties, I think. So some of these have been around for quite a long time. And nowadays they've become big annual, big hall events, a lot of in-person ones. You can also join in online and watch the streams, and they take submissions from people online as well. And these parties have quite a festival vibe. There's showcases, there's competitions with constraints, seminars, DJs, food trucks, drink and socializing. Lots of them during the summer. And the demo scene sort of feels like the embodiment of the real treasure was the friends we made along the way. A lot of this now is social as opposed to the hardcore things people do with computers. All that's still a large part of it. And if it matters to anybody, there's also UNESCO cultural designation in Finland, Germany, Poland, and Netherlands for the demo scene. So we have a range of styles in live coding, competitive to casual. There's two main platforms. There's shaders, which work on graphic cards and run lots and lots of maths. Byte jams, which run on a modified TIC-80, which is a sort of SNES Super Famicom style fancy console, but you can still, it's got a memory map, so you can play tricks with it. But also exotic things like Amiga Basic Amos Pro, ZX Spectrum, patch battles, which are sort of joining visual components up to make stuff in real time. And this happens in front of an audience or online. The tools work across the internet with WebSockets. So there's a competitive strand, there's shader showdowns, where you often have 3 rounds of 3 people competing. That's the big one in Revision demo party in Germany, and I think May time. There's Shader Royale, inertia around that. So there's knockouts of many people. I think it's probably about 20 people over an hour by votes, public vote, and bite battles where 2 people compete, usually on time limitation, 10 to 25 minutes maybe. There's an extreme version of that. There's 1 minute. Kernel limited can be 256 characters. That's often a constraint as well. But we also have a casual side, which has DJs. It's friendly, usually online. Inertia had a shaded jam recently. That's the demo party in Portugal with 33 simultaneous people working on it. And we have Monday Night Bites, which is an online regular thing for most Mondays. And that's happened for 2 years. It's 1 hour long, and there is chat that happens inside. And people say it's a good way to perform without going on stage. You don't need to spend months concentrating on building something. You just go. Limitations are obvious, so it's very impressive when something happens that's incredible. And the competitions are fun, a bit like World Wrestling. It's friendly competition as a strength. And it has a very supportive community. Like absolutely anyone at any level is welcome to join the jams and play. And it's a good entry to the demo scene and to show off your stuff. So we do have, I want to share my screen and show one of the big things we do. The demo scene is very good at archiving things. So this is livecodedemoz.org. This is the main point. If you want to find out about all the amazing things that people do, this is a list of all the effects that people have created over the competitive and collaborative events. We have Field Effects, which is a Monday night bike jam, which anybody's welcome to join in. And I will share a little slide to say thanks to people who supplied information.
Thank you very much for that. And yeah, demo scene is really cool. Like a fun little tidbit is that when I first got into live coding, I actually, to practice performing and getting different stuff out, I actually did a lot of remote entries before remote was a thing. So I actually did like I remember there was a lot in Finland and Sweden. So just learning the history of this demo scene has always been fascinating. Because like you said, there's like 2 different formats I real like I know so there's wild, but like you have the shader battles, right? Where it's like you're going competitive real time. And then you also have what some people will call like the size coding or code golfing. How do you blend this with the live coding, right? Because those are 2 different mentalities.
I mean, the people live code competitively with size coding, so that's one of the battles people have. And they like people just like to show the most impressive stuff that they can. So there's you have an artistry and a technical marriage there. Like people try to do the best technically on the size coding and the most wonderful thing within the amount of space. Like it's all about constraints.
Yeah. And also, that's what I think is also interesting because, as you were saying, there's also different competitions with different devices, right? So it is very arc vital, right? Like bringing the past into the future. And what direction do you think their demo scene could go? Like what hasn't been done, or if it has done everything, or what ideas are flowing in the scene?
I think people are always keen to try new things on new platforms. So anytime a new device arrives, that's something. I think there's potential for live coding to become there's a bit of opportunity for a bit more mischief in live coding, I think. Like a few of us have been talking recently about uh, having four people collaboratively do stuff, but they all start from the same start point, or you press a button and everybody's code switches around by one, or things like that. Or I've done a couple of things where I've worked on something and somebody else has worked on the same thing. So I think there's sort of interesting ways to cross over how people work.
Yeah. It reminds me of the Food Network. If you're familiar with like Chop, you know how like it's like, yeah, you have the ingredients, and then after, like 10 minutes, it's like we have a secret thing. That what made me think when you're like the mischief, because mischief sometimes gets a bad reputation, but at times it does fuel creativity and ideas of what can be. I think that's what you're echoing with that line.
I think so. Mischief around my ways, in my house, mischief is a good thing. Like it's about kind of pushing interesting, cute ideas, making something different happen.
Yeah. Oh, that is very interesting. And if oh Kate says, I love how the demo scene is pushing the process over the product.
Yeah, I didn't quite come on to saying this, but I think there's one thing that moves in a slightly different direction to a lot of live coding, in that actually the product is something. So there's a sort of an endpoint that people sometimes work to. So it's less of a rock concert thing and more of there are several stages which might be a performance, and some people are actually, and this is broad stroke, but some people are very good at making a performance that kind of switches halfway through. Um, but all of that can be archived in a way. Like you can the process of yeah, okay, so the demo scene, the live coding demo scene sort of moves away from having a set thing that you show at these events to something that people watch as an experience. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And we have someone, Aldroid, in the chat, who I'm pretty sure you just was in your thank you consideration, said Byte Battle size coding is how Tick 80 live coding got started. I love Byte. And then PS enough mentioned when in doubt, break all limitations. And it seems that like echoes the demo scene. So thank you very much, James. Stick around. There's going to be a group Q&A, and thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
And now, last, it's your moderator, me, and my concept is live coding as a recreational, adaptive, and therapeutic modality. First, we start with this thing that I think is summed up by all the presentations that have been done in this section. Artistic expression has helped people identify with certain cultures by providing a sense of being able to control elements of change that can be witnessed within their artwork. And I found this quote, even though it was talking about overall culture, I think it really demonstrates the power of live coding, where not only do we try to control these elements, or sometimes, as we have mentioned, times technology is random and unpredictable, like starting a Zoom link, the change that's witnessed in the artwork is done live. So while we talk about live coding as a leisure, as a therapeutic model, as a way to bring concepts, there are some questions I want you all to think about while I'm doing this presentation. What is your third favorite environment to play in? If you could communicate in your live coding language of choice, how would you use it to say hi to a friend? What is your preferred BPM when you're trying to dance? And does it differ from your preferred BPM for sitting down? Do you have a pre-performance stretch routine for your hands after all those minutes where you're trying to figure out if you should use your pinky to press S or if you like done a typo? How do you like get that tension away from your hands? And how do you document your code? Do you take screenshots? Do you note take video or all of the above or a mixture of above? So when you're doing therapeutic recreation, which is therapy based on using leisure and activities for well-being, we can see that life coding is a great discipline for that because there's 8 natural disciplines from crafts and collection, games, entertainment, nature, volunteerism, sports, which can be changed from movement and dance, social affiliation, art and music. And if you realize there's something for everyone. In entertainment, we got algorithms, installations, demo parties. For nature, we had a presentation in the 2019 ICLC about parkour code. And lately, there's been a lot of emergence of sensory walks. Volunteerism, there's ICLC, HLCI, PCD, social affiliations, yearly challenges, weekly challenges, discourse, talk laugh. And then art and music is the core of creative coding. And then we also have different games as expressed by James, where in revision there's shader battles and collections. You can collect different code samples and you can craft. And there's a lot of craft now being done and experimented by live coders, and some will talk about this in other sessions. Which brings us to the point of why life coding could be an interesting modality for this. Life coding is an agreement to engagement. The, According to Phillips, 2 main rules of improv are that you must agree with the other person and add to the conversation, or sometimes disagree. And it's the agreement in life coding doesn't really have to be with the other person. It's really a conversation also between your thoughts, yourself, and the machine. And this is just one example of if we take it from a leisure model, what can be done. And this is a way of expression through codes score sheet was a way to translate one of the typical assessments in recreational therapy, but really in a way to think of if someone wanting to learn to live code, what are some ways other than choose this language? So I've been working on lately of different ways that if someone asks this question, can we do it in a way that shows their true interests? And can we give them vocabulary or ideas to think about before they start? And once again, in there's 5 well-being domains in this field, and life coding actually touches all of them. From spiritual, we have therapeutic life code and daily journaling. From physical, we have Terpsy code. We have portable sound walk system that was done by Hernani, Terpsy code by Kate. Social, cybernetic orchestra improvisation that we have seen with things like Clork or out of McMaster. Algorithms, cognitive, we have inverse website which challenges the mind to write poetry while coding, or Pixieland where you size bite mathematical concepts out of 16 by 16 grids, or emotional, dipping code, multisensory, transmit reflections. And we can use sound. So this is a project I did with Rhonda Brotang where we were trying to use live coding and are still using live coding to burn out mental health well-being for Black Canadians in Ontario. And one of the ways we're trying to do is use sound as a way to sonify the future, as well as using sound that can heal, as they resonate in our soul, as it does more than touch and heal. Because every language has sounds, and that's one thing that's been echoed through every presentation in this segment. That sound has this culture that brings itself outside into our everyday life. And when we start standing in front of a computer or sitting down or performing, some of these thoughts inside is therapeutic because it resonates with us. It's us talking to the world. And it doesn't have to stop there. As one thing that I also been doing is integrating multisensory components into live coding. So this is one of them called multisensory dining, which I had the privilege of presenting at ICLC 2023. Basically, it was creating a data-driven experience that is rooted in incorporate the senses in ways that isn't normally utilized. So while I was doing this performance, people were eating, and I actually collaborated with the restaurant that while they were eating, I will be coding what they're eating in different formats. Let it be smell, let it be visuals, let it be sound. And then I was also performing with Renee, so we had a poetry and sing it at the same time. So it was really multi-sensory dining, but it also used the code to bring it out beyond the screen. And this is another project, Atlas of Intangibles by Preeti. And I like this concept because it's really about sensory walks, but you can also use live coding elements on how you walk, because sometimes we don't realize there's so much data while we walk. And this can present itself in many ways. Like, have you realized how many trees you walk by in a 10-minute walk? Have you realized that the birds might gravitate towards a certain person but not another? How do you codify that? How do you translate that so a machine can understand and then others can? And that's what I like about the whole live coding paradigm as a leisure, because then we start seeing it that the meaning in it doesn't necessarily have to be how fast you can code or beauty, which there's nothing wrong, but it could also be, are you expressing how you feeling? Are you able to get a laugh with your friends? Are you able to enjoy the randomness that life has to bring? And it all comes down to the interaction process of exploring, experimenting, and play. And then finally, if code is more than code, what is possible? There's outcomes like Seacrest Hero, which uses game to help those with Alzheimer's get the data points needed for researchers to find out how we can help. Digital art therapy, daily reflections, language creations, or what about meditative coding, where you go in the streets and you let the whole room and the whole sidewalk and the cars and the smell of the clouds dictate how you're going to code, or even using poetry and code, or do a sound walk, or even dancing and vibing to code. And then coding for personal well-being, localization, making it your own, creation, manifestation, socialization, as discovered in this that even though coding is considered a singular activity, a lot of us do it in a way to socialize, and then diversification of who we talk to, of what tools we use. And these are several ways that live coding can be used as a leisure, therapeutic, and adaptive modality. And now, if everyone will turn on their cameras, because we are going into the group Q&A. And I'm just going to read something from PS Enough. Become one with the machine. Someone mentioned they love the graphics. Yeah, a lot of my presentations, when it comes to the graphics, I try to do like a live coded thing because I like to have it all messed up. So, first question for everyone. Whoever wants to answer first, everyone can get a chance to answer. When you think of the culture that you merge live coding with, how do you feel about the term appropriation? Do you think there is a way that maybe we could be doing too much with live coding? Like, does live coding have to be everywhere in metal? Or how do you put that pushback that sometimes we're seeing where, oh, just because you can digitalize it, it doesn't have to be digitalized? Luis first and Alvaro second.
So that's a very interesting question. So for my project, I was telling you, I met with people from Latin America to see if they agreed to this project I was doing. But on the other hand, I think that it's important for us, maybe live coders and artists, to kind of look into different ways of digitalizing this music or these cultural artifacts in a way that maybe is less dominant than the way corporations do it. And so if I, for instance, wouldn't have done my project become of some fear of appropriation, one argument would be that these rhythms of cumbia already exist and have been appropriated by corporations. So, for instance, you can find libraries in Ableton where you can which describe this cumbia music as a Latin flavor, and so the idea of the flavor could be also taken in some ways as with maybe some sort of racist connotations, or maybe etc. And so the point here is that this music, in my opinion, has been already appropriated through the rhythm. What's the name? The rhythm boxes, or the rhythm machines, as well as I was telling you, like Ableton and the libraries, etc. So I think that as artists, maybe we have to maybe it's our task, etc., to kind of look for other ways of appropriation, which is going to happen and it's happening, but maybe open that to the collective, so the appropriation becomes more of meaningful for the public, as opposed to just having a monetary value, and so on. Anyway.
Yeah, thank you. Vera,
Yeah, so share my screen because that's the only way I can share my audio. I think metal specifically is already a genre that is tightly linked to, straight white demographics to begin with. So um, appropriation is kind of interesting to navigate in this context, but there have been people mentioning when I do this kind of stuff like, oh, well, you're taking
can you speak a bit more up? You're a bit lower.
Yeah, yeah. Can you hear me now? A little bit
Yes, you're
better?
better now.
Yeah,
Yes, you're better
sorry.
now.
Yeah, I was saying that metal as a genre already has been dominated by cis-straight white male demographics, but uh, like against some critics that say that live coding kind of appropriates this genre, I would say that live coding, as in any other novel artistic techniques, can bring innovations to the genre and, if anything, refresh it or bring it back to different roots or bring it to different communities, which can be a positive thing. So yeah, that's so in which I see live coding being positive in
Yeah,
these
no,
styles.
yeah. Thank you for that. And James, you have anything to add? Because I know it's a bit different from you because you're going from one digital format to another.
So I think the demo scene by its origin has a very counter-capitalist feeling, a very rebellious thing. People are keen to break limits on all kinds of hardware, like there's sort of like that rebellion built in. I think live coding, from like the live coding I've seen, has been very personally driven. People are making things for themselves, contributing to a kind of shared community. So I don't think I've really seen that be a thing.
Yeah. But I guess it's also different in the sense of demo scene because I guess it's like really about the archiving, right? Because it is harder to archive, or not harder to archive, different to archive when something is meant to be in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, although as I say, like the a lot of the live coding that we do is visual and sort of has a finished endpoint, and you can look through
Yeah,
uh,
true.
demos and just see like hundreds. In fact, there's probably 500 effects there of various things people have done, and just enjoy the different approaches people have had. And they
Yeah,
sort of borrow things from each other, but it's all a sort of I can do better sort of thing,
yeah,
competitive,
yeah,
friendly thing.
yeah, for sure. Next question that we have from Chelsea, if I mispronounce your name, my apologies. How do you introduce live code art to people who are not necessarily familiar with computers? I think I will start that out because that was the whole point of me bringing live coding with like as a leisure, because as a leisure, you don't necessarily have to be familiar with computers to live code. Technically, we do this every day. And one example I give is that if I told everybody, think of a snowy day. If you're from Montreal, that could mean 20 centimeters, 12 inches of snow. If you're from Hawaii, that could mean 4 centimeters. So we already program ourselves as machines. Also, we have these algorithms also on what you wear. Like, let's say you're not feeling well, you might want to wear the color red. That is a personal algorithm. So my approach is also to show that people that we are naturally thinking in such a way, because a lot of our decisions are based on expectation, bias, and sometimes randomness. And that's what I think is cool when you show live coding, because it's like one of those things like, hey, you make mistakes in real life and you can translate that in code as well. So the pursuit of mistakes and failure. And if anyone else wants to join in on that question, yeah.
I think what we do is very visually beautiful. So it's very appealing to people to look at. But I've had a huge struggle trying to explain to people at work what I actually do. It's only like you can show doing a little bit of it and start to chip away, and they can kind of see, you're starting to build something up. But for people who don't code, it's just a foreign language. It's just stuff goes in and something beautiful comes out. So it's a really interesting question that I don't really have any significant answer to.
Uh, for Louise, I think that question can merge with this one because this is from Jessica. Can you talk more about the syntax you use to create the language and perform Cuban music that would fit more with this specific music context? Because I guess in your sense, that's how you would introduce someone to it, right? About that specific music context. So can you explain more about that?
Yes. So the syntax is in Spanish, and what I try to do is going back to maybe even the cultural appropriation concept is I try to depart from my lived experience in terms of I'm originally from Mexico, and so I speak Spanish, and so that's why I did it in that language. So particularly in Mexico City Spanish, and I was also looking at different videos of people playing and talking about the music, and also in terms of looking into other um, scores and so on to see the way they were speaking about the different rhythms. And so some of the commands refer to the specific ways or the general ways people, musicians, refer to musical patterns. So for instance, there is a command called tumbao, which basically means it just means the rhythm and the harmonic aspect of bass line, for instance. So you could maybe even translate it bass line. And so that those commands, tumbao, ritmo, which is rhythm, acompañamiento, accompaniment, and so on, are part of the syntax to kind of recreate maybe the feeling of musical band where when someone asks to the keyboard player, hey, can you accompany this cumbia rhythm? And then the pianist will just come up with a pattern that fits the music. I don't know if that makes sense. Anyway, so that is part of the syntax. And maybe connecting that to the question about introducing people to this genre. Um, I yeah, so I guess language could be a way of, like, natural language could be a way to introduce people to this, to live coding, in the sense that if they maybe understand some of the commands and the context, then everything that could be an entry point, as well as the music. So maybe sometimes when I do the workshops, I combine I show some examples, video examples of the rhythms and how people play it with traditional instruments. And then we translate that into the code. But also my code is, recently I changed the code from numerical to graphical, in the sense that if you recall, it has notation, musical notation, Western musical notation. And so that also maybe is a type of different language that for people who maybe are not related to chords, but maybe do know some music, maybe they might, that could be another entry point. So in terms of, so long story short, my language, and I think most of our live coding languages have different entry points. Either it is the music, either it is maybe the mathematical aspect to it, or maybe the natural language to it. So it's not necessarily about knowing computers, but rather maybe knowing the, getting introduced into the environment of the languages.
Yeah, I think that's something that is underrated at times where natural language is a thing, but there's also syntax, grammar, mindsets that's in a language design. Just because, when we say like, oh yeah, live coding languages are created languages, all languages are basically created off symbols, cultural, semantics. And I think that's a great segue to this question for Alvaro from Francisco. How how can this influence the live music in groups that are today playing? Like can the mentality that you bring in live code and metal, live code and music can be introduced in groups?
Yeah, I think the rhythm and harmonic and form transformations that we can access through live coding, which can be particularly interesting and crazy, um, can inspire people to write music in new styles or subgenres because it just opens up new possibilities. It's kind of similar to when you think of Colin and Caro and how he started making all this mind-blowing music thanks to the invention of player pianos and how he exploited that system to its limits. Um, I think similarly, if we keep pushing in this direction of live coding metal, more bands will eventually, get interested and start making music in this style and using these transformations that are very specific to computer music and live coding in their music. And then all of a sudden, we'll be getting all these crazy polyrhythms and polymeters and all these transformations that we have access to in Tidal and similar languages. I'm sure that's going to happen at some point.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, that makes sense. And Alex said, I think this was in your slide, when I saw Meshaga recently, they recently nice tightly synced light show. Would be nice to see that in a live coded version. And to segue into the final question, to what Alex said, we all tend to seem like we like to push the envelopes here from mischief to remodifying genres. So what is a live coding fantasy or idea or speculative thing that you want to see done or you yourself want to do? Like if you had a live coded bucket list, what is one of the wildest ideas? And it could just be one-liners, and that would be the final question. So who wants to start? I see you have something in mind, so we start with you.
Sure. The crazy idea I'm having in mind at the moment is uh, a duo with a singer where both the two of us are wearing screens that are showing the code that we are typing and the lyrics that we are singing, and having stand-up wearable keywords so we can be live coding while, running across the states. So something along those lines.
What about you, Louise? What is a live coding dreamscape or fantasy that you want to bring up?
Well, I just want to, with the last project I showed you with the language, I just want to make it work as a show or part of a show. So have it in the background, really big, but also not taking, maybe even going back to the idea of how do you introduce people to computers, having it back at the back, but not really taking people not necessarily realizing that this is code, etc. But rather maybe just having it in the back, and then also instruments and people dancing in the floor. So more like an experience, and that's why I created this language in such a way that it really it has a lot of colors and so on. And so I was just thinking about giving a concert to people where they were just looking at this screen and they thought they were maybe thinking that it was like a grocery store advertisement or something, not necessarily any editor. And that's my
Oh,
speculation.
nice,
That's what I want to do. Yeah.
nice. And James, to end it off, well, yeah. What about you?
I think mine's very similar, like doing visuals for a huge electronic band like Orbital, who have a logo and an ident spinning in the background with their shows, and people not maybe not knowing that it's live coded, like it's so good that it could be pre-recorded, that sort of thing.
One of my things to end it off is to have like a live coded cinema thing where like you do like a whole interactive narrative from the start, but like big productions, all that stuff. Think like theater, but live coded, like theater and film and all that. So yes, my red shirt is making me feel good. Someone asked me that in the question, and it is. And thank you very much, James Luis Alvaro, for this. Guys, stay tuned. We're going to have a little break, and then we're going to go to session 2, AV relationships. Thank you very much, everybody.